The blizzard was not natural. Dragon Queen Virakoth knew this the moment the storm began to sing. Snow screamed across the iron plains of Karo's prime, not merely driven by wind, but by a harmonic pressure-on ancient resonance that clawed at bone and scale alike. The sky had turned the color of bruised steel, and lightning cracked sideways instead of down, arcing between floating shards of frozen air. Her warship, the Crown of Ash, lay half buried in the ice, engines dead, shields flickering like dying embers. This world was not supposed to be able to do this. Report, Virakoth commanded, her voice echoing through the shattered command chamber, her officers towering dragonkin, clad in scorched crimson, armor stood in silence. Consoles were dark, crystals shattered. The living metal of the ship groaned as the storm crushed it inch by inch. A younger officer finally lowered his head. The storm has severed the ether conduits, Your Majesty. Our flame cores are frozen. We cannot lift. We cannot signal. And the blizzard is adapting. That last word made Virakoth's wings twitch. Adapting storms were not weather. They were weapons, and somewhere out there, buried beneath snow and screaming wind, was the reason this planet had been quarantined. By the Galactic Accord humans, they found the boy by accident. A patrol was clearing ice from a collapsed hangar section when a heat signature flickered on there. Scanners, small, weak, but persistent. At first they assumed it was a malfunction. Then something moved beneath the snow. Dragon soldiers tore through the drift, steam rising from their claws as they melted the ice with controlled flame. Beneath it lay a wreckage of scrap metal, cables, and scavenged hull, plating crude, asymmetrical, ugly dot, and in the center of it all sat a human child. He couldn't have been more than 12 cycles old. His face was raw from the cold, cheeks red and cracked, dark hair crusted with frost. He wore a patched thermal suit held together by mismatched clamps and wire. In his gloved hands was a tool-haft torch, half-welder humming softly. The boy looked up at the towering dragon warriors without fear. "Oh," he said calmly, "you're not the storm." Weapons snapped up instantly. "Human," one soldier growled. "Identify yourself." The boy blinked, then shrugged. "Eli, just Eli." They brought him to the Queen. Virakoth had conquered worlds. She had watched stars collapse and civilizations burn themselves out in centuries of screaming pride. She had eaten the hearts of leviathans and worn their bones as crowns. Yet, when the human boy was escorted into her ruined throne chamber, she felt something unfamiliar coil in her chest. Not fear, curiosity. "You are alone," she said, lowering herself so her massive head was level with him. Frost steamed off her scales. "Why are you not dead?" Eli glanced around the shattered chamber, then back at her. "I fixed the heater." A murmur rippled through the dragon court. "You?" "What?" He lifted his tool slightly. "My shelter. It was broken. Dad taught me how to fix things before he stopped." His jaw tightened. "Before he didn't come back." Virakoth studied him closely. No pheromone markers of deception. No tremor of fear. Only exhaustion and something else. Stubbornness. "You survive a planetary blizzard that freezes dragonfire," she said slowly, with scrap and hope. Eli shook his head. "Not hope, work." The storm howled louder, as if offended. The blizzard worsened. Ice breached the inner hull. The Crown of Ash began to fail in earnest. Dragon engineers tried everything rekindling flame cores, rerouting mana flows, burning ice from within, but the storm drank fire like water. Vyakov's claws dug into the floor. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Dragon Queen faced something she could not overpower. Eli watched silently from where he sat near a broken console, knees pulled to his chest. "Your ship's sick," he said eventually. Several officers snarled. "Silence, human." "No," Vyakath said. "Speak." Eli stood, wobbling slightly, then walked toward the engine diagram flickering faintly on a cracked crystal display. "This part," he said, pointing. "You're trying to heat it." "Yes," the chief engineer snapped. "It is frozen. That's the problem," Eli replied. "You're fighting the cold." Dad said, "Never fight the problem. Make it work for you." The chamber went very quiet. Vyakov tilted her head. "Explain." Eli hesitated, then took a breath. "Cold makes things contract. You're feeding power into rigid systems. They're cracking because they can't move. You need flex." Dragon technology was built on dominance force over nature. Flame over void. Flexibility was not a dragon virtue. But they were dying. "Show us," Vyakov said. They gave him access. It took hours. Eli crawled through frozen ducts, barely wider than his shoulders. Fingers numb, breath shallow. He rewired flame regulators to cycle instead of surge. He rerouted excess heat into oscillating sync-letting parts, cool and warm in rhythm. Instead of resisting the storm, he scavenged broken armor plates, bending them into shock-absorbing bracers. He used dragon crystal shards as crude capacitors, laughing once when one exploded and nearly took his eyebrow with it. "Dad would have yelled at me for that," he muttered. The dragons watched in stunned silence. No magic, no ancient rites, just problem-solving when the core finally stabilized. It did not roar, it hummed. The storm outside faltered, then screamed. The blizzard tried to kill them. Winds reached impossible speeds. Ice spears punched through hull plating. The storm began emitting pulses, seeking, learning. Eli staggered as feedback slammed through the systems. "It's mad," he said, grinning weakly. "Guess it doesn't like being ignored." Vyakath felt it then. The storm was not a weapon. It was a warden, designed to trap something, and it had just realized it was losing. "Eli," she said, using his name for the first time. "Can you end it?" He wiped blood from his nose. "No," he admitted, "but I can break its rules." He rerouted the ship's stabilized hum into the storm itself, not as heat, not as force, but as noise. Chaotic, irregular interference. The storm stuttered. Snow fell straight down, then stopped. Silence claimed the world. When the crown of ash finally lifted from the ice, Vyakov did something no dragon queen had ever done. She bowed, not to a conqueror, not to a god, but to a human boy with frostbitten fingers and his father's lessons stitched into his bones. "You saved my people," she said. "Name your price." Eli thought for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Just don't come back here to burn stuff, okay? This planet already took enough." Vyakath swore it, then an oath, carved into flame and memory. And when the Galactic Accord later asked why the Dragon Empire had reclassified humanity from primitive survivors to existential engineers, her answer was simple. Because when the universe breaks, she said, humans do not roar, they fix it.